Imagine walking into a beautiful, high-end boutique. The lighting is absolutely perfect. The displays are gorgeous.
The music is playing at just the right volume.
Exactly. You're browsing and you pick up a sweater, you look around, maybe walk toward the register looking for some help.
Yeah.
But the moment you do, the sales staff just turns around and stares at the wall.
Just absolute silence.
Total silence.
Yeah.
You are practically trying to give them your money, and they are completely ignoring you. And honestly, that is exactly what most e-commerce stores are doing right now when their automated email mechanics aren't set up correctly.
It's a painful visual, really, because of how accurate it is. I mean, operators spend immense amounts of time and, ad budget driving foot traffic to a digital storefront.
Right.
They optimize the ads, the landing page, the product photography, but then they completely neglect the underlying systems that actually communicate with the customer once they're inside the building and interacting with the merchandise.
So for you listening right now, whether you are operating an e-commerce brand, evaluating one for an investment, or just curious about how these massive digital retail engines actually operate, we are going on a deep dive today into the mechanics of what is arguably the single biggest profit lever in direct-to-consumer e-commerce.
Oh, without a doubt.
We've pulled together a stack of sources today, vendor-neutral research, operator playbooks, and raw data on Shopify and Klaviyo setups. And our mission here is to understand exactly how mature DTC brands use automated email to drive 25 to 35% of their total revenue.
And doing that at practically zero marginal cost.
Which is the crazy part. I'm genuinely so excited to peek behind the curtain of how this actually works.
It is fascinating. And looking across all this data, a clear reality emerges. The technology is incredibly powerful, yes, but the software itself is rarely the bottleneck.
Okay, what is it then?
Well, you can have the most expensive marketing stack in the world, but hitting that 35% revenue mark comes down to operator discipline. It's about the strategy behind the tool, not just owning the tool.
So let's get into that strategy. But before we even talk about generating revenue, we have to figure out if a store is actually at the right stage for a heavy-duty platform like Klaviyo. Because you jump in too early, you're just burning cash, right? What's the actual threshold where this makes sense?
The consensus in the data is pretty definitive on this. If a store is doing under 50 orders a month and there is no real email list or, near-term plan to aggressively grow one, there is zero reason to pay for advanced software.
You just stick to the basics.
Exactly. You stick to the free Shopify email tool. It is perfectly fine for sending a basic newsletter every few weeks to a small group. But the turning point is roughly $2,000 in monthly revenue.
Or around 200 orders, right?
Yeah, around 200 orders. That is the threshold where the depth of automation actually starts paying back the monthly subscription cost.
Okay, and what about the massive brands, the ones making millions?
So once a brand scales past, say, 100,000 active profiles, especially if they have physical retail stores, mobile apps, and just complex bespoke data needs, they generally outgrow standard email platforms altogether.
Ah, so they move off Klaviyo.
Often, yes. That's when you start seeing enterprise CDPs customer data platforms like Segment or Imparticle. A CDP acts as a giant central brain, pulling in data from everywhere. Your point of sale system in a brick and mortar store, your customer service desk, your app.
Got it. But for the vast majority of Shopify merchants listening, they're going to live in that middle tier for years.
Oh, absolutely.
So you cross that 200 order threshold, you sign up for Klaviyo, and you see they have a free tier. Up to 250 active profiles, paid plans kick in near $20 a month for 500 profiles. I look at that 250 profile limit, and it feels incredibly small.
It is very small.
Is that free tier actually meant to be useful, or is it just a classic SaaS bait and switch to attract cash-strapped founders?
Well, it is useful, but only for a highly specific, very narrow window. Think of it as a sandbox for your pre-launch phase, or maybe your first 60 days of operation.
Okay.
It gives you 500 included email sends. That is just enough capacity to build out your foundational automated flows, test your pop-ups to make sure they actually capture data, and verify that your tracking pixels are working correctly without burning through your runway.
But you're going to outgrow it fast.
Very fast. And when you do upgrade, there is a massive billing trap that catches so many new operators.
The active profile trap. I was reading through this part of the research, and it genuinely blew my mind how many people fall for this. Klaviyo, like a lot of these platforms, charges based on active profiles, not the number of emails you send.
Correct.
So picture this. You've been running your Shopify store for 2 years. You've accumulated 10,000 historical customers. You integrate Klaviyo, the API connects, and it automatically ports everyone. Boom. You're instantly bumped to the 10,000 profile tier.
Which runs about $150 a month.
Right. But here is the kicker. Out of those 10,000 people who bought from you, maybe only 3,000 of them actually check the little box at checkout to opt into marketing emails.
Which means you are paying a premium monthly subscription for 10,000 profiles, but legally, you can only send marketing emails to 3,000 of them.
It's insane. It is literally like paying to rent a 10,000-seat stadium for a concert when, only 3,000 fans actually bought tickets.
Right.
Why wouldn't you just rope off the empty seats so you don't have to pay for the security and the lighting for the whole arena?
Roping off the seats is exactly what you have to do, and the mechanism for that in the software is called suppression.
Suppression, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you initially set up that Shopify integration, you have to actively configure it to mark non-subscribers as suppressed at import.
But wait, don't I lose all their purchase data if I suppress them?
No, and that's the genius of it. If you suppress them, the platform still ingests and stores their historical purchase data. You can still see what they bought for analytics purposes.
Oh, wow.
But because they are suppressed, they do not count toward your billing tier. SaaS companies price this way because they know human nature is to just passively hoard data.
Right. They capitalize on operators who just click next, next, next during setup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Suppressing those non-consenting profiles is a completely legal, intended hack to keep your overhead low while you build your actual audience.
Okay, so we've navigated the billing trap. We are paying the correct amount. Now, how do we actually generate that promised 25 to 35% revenue? The sources point directly to flows. And I think we need to clarify what that means because the underlying mechanism is totally different from how people usually think about email marketing.
It is.
A flow is an automated sequence triggered by specific user behavior. It's not a broadcast.
Right. A broadcast or a campaign is batch and blast. You write one email about a Memorial Day sale, and you send it to 50,000 people at exactly 10 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Which is like standing on a soapbox with a megaphone shouting at a crowd. Some people might be interested, but most are walking right past you. A flow, on the other hand, is like setting up a series of highly intelligent tripwires throughout your physical store.
I love that analogy.
If a customer walks down the shoe aisle, a specific helpful message plays just for them. If they loiter at the register, but then leave the store, a different tripwire triggers. And the data shows these behavior-based flows consistently outperform regular broadcast campaigns, roughly 4 to 1 in terms of revenue per recipient.
Because the relevance is infinitely higher. You spend the time to set up that tripwire once, and you harvest the revenue from it forever. And the data identifies 6 core flows that do the heavy lifting for any successful DTC brand.
But you don't build them all at once, right?
No, definitely not. On day one, you only need 2, the welcome series and the abandoned cart.
So the welcome series triggers when someone actively hands over their email. And the open rates on these are staggering, usually 40 to 55% on that very first email. You deliver your welcome offer, maybe a 10 or 15% discount, and it brings in the bulk of your new customer revenues.
Yep, it's your biggest moneymaker.
But I want to talk about the abandoned cart flow, because there is a massive strategic pitfall here. The standard blueprint is an email at 1 hour, another at 24 hours, and a third at 72 hours. Hold on. If I leave a pair of shoes in my online cart, and my phone buzzes 3 times over 3 days reminding me about it, I'm marking that brand as spam. Isn't this just annoying the customer?
It sounds aggressive until you look at the psychology and the actual environment of the modern digital shopper.
Okay, explain that.
We have this bias where we assume a user abandoned their cart because they made a conscious decision not to buy the product. In reality, they usually abandoned the cart because their food delivery arrived, or they switched subway trains.
Or their boss walked past their desk while they were shopping on company time.
Exactly. So they literally just got distracted. That is why the 1-hour email is purely a helpful, customer service-oriented reminder.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the 24-hour one?
The 24-hour email layers in social proof, maybe highlighting some 5-star customer reviews of the product they left behind just to build trust. But the most crucial detail of this entire sequence, and where operator discipline really comes into play, is the 72-hour email.
Right.
That is the only point where you should introduce a discount incentive to try and save the sale.
Because if you offer the discount in that very first hour, you are actively training your entire customer base to abandon their carts on purpose.
100%.
They'll just load up the cart, close the tab, and sit there waiting for the 15% off coupon to arrive.
And you destroy your blended profit margin if you discount too early. The analytics show that most people who are going to organically recover and finish their purchase, well, they'll do so from those first 2 non-discounted emails. You hold the margin-killing discount back until day 3 for the true holdouts.
That is so smart. Okay, so we have our welcome series and our protected abandoned cart. What's the next wave of tripwires we need to set up?
Once those two are humming, you layer in browse abandonment and post-purchase. Browse abandonment is fascinating because it targets the long tail of almost buyers.
How did that trigger?
It triggers when someone views a specific product page but doesn't even add the item to their cart within a 6-hour window. The revenue generated per email is lower than a cart abandonment, but the sheer volume of people triggering this flow is vastly higher.
Wow. And the post-purchase flow is all about what happens after the credit card clears. You send an email at 3 days with a care guide or usage tips, an email at 14 days requesting a review, and an email at 30 days offering a complimentary product, maybe an upsell.
Exactly. You're proactively reducing returns by teaching them how to use the item, and you're quietly seeding the next purchase.
And rounding out the core six, we have replenishment and win-back. Replenishment is the lifeblood if you sell consumables, right?
Ah.
Coffee, supplements, skincare.
Yes. If you know a bottle of your vitamin serum takes 30 days to use up, you set a tripwire for day 28. It predicts they are running low and offers a seamless one-click reorder.
And win-back is exactly what it sounds like. It triggers when a previous buyer hasn't ordered in 90 or maybe 180 days. You send a soft touch, then maybe a steeper incentive. And the math here is undeniable. Recovering just 2 to 4% of those dormant buyers costs you effectively nothing.
Compare that to the $30 to $45 you have to spend on Meta or Google Ads to acquire a brand new customer.
It's a no-brainer.
But here is the structural problem. You are sending all these behavior-triggered emails, your win-back campaigns are running, but eventually natural list churn and unsubscribes mean your audience depletes.
Right.
All of those brilliant flows are completely useless if you aren't constantly refilling the top of the funnel.
Which brings us to the pop-ups, the sign-up forms on the website. I was looking at the conversion rules for these forms, and the first one is pretty intuitive. Lead with the offer, not the subscription. Saying, get 10% off your first order converts about 3 times better than join our newsletter.
Because you are highlighting the value, not the cost of entry.
Exactly. But the second rule, hold on, that completely violates basic UX principles. It says a 2-step pop-up actually beats a 1-step pop-up. Adding a second screen means adding friction. And friction kills conversion. Why are we making them click twice?
It seems so counterintuitive until you look at the psychology of micro-commitments.
Okay, unpack that.
When a user lands on your site and a pop-up immediately shoves an empty text box in their face asking for their email, it feels invasive, it feels like work, it's a transaction.
Right.
But a 2-step pop-up alters the dynamic. The first screen doesn't ask for any personal data at all, it just asks a simple question with 2 buttons. Do you want 10% off? Yes or no?
And who's going to click no to free money?
Nobody. Clicking yes is a micro-commitment. By clicking that button, they have psychologically opted in to receiving the reward. When the second screen appears and finally asks where to send that reward, the psychological friction is gone. They've already committed to the process. The data proves it. Breaking it into 2 steps actually converts 1.5 to 2 times higher than shoving the email field on the first screen.
That is brilliant. You trick the brain into saying yes before you ask for the favor. And the third rule ties into that. If you are collecting SMS numbers, do it on the success step. Don't bundle the email and phone number request on the same screen, or your total conversion plummets.
Keep them separated.
Right. Now, assuming you do all this right, a healthy benchmark for an exit intent pop-up is a 3 to 5% conversion rate. And once that list is growing, you can add high-intent bonus flows. The absolute standout in the data is the back-end stock flow.
Oh, it is the highest intent flow in the entire e-commerce stack.
It triggers when a sold-out variant returns to positive inventory. And the conversion rates are massive, like 25 to 40%. People literally raise their hand and said, I want to buy this, tell me when I can.
Yes, it's basically free money at that point.
You also see price drop flows, emailing people who viewed an item recently if the price goes down, and birthday or anniversary flows, which routinely see open rates over 50%.
But we do have to address the massive existential threat to all of this.
The deliverability plumbing.
Exactly. You can have the most persuasive pop-ups in the world and perfectly timed flows that protect your margins. But what happens if none of those emails actually reach the customer?
They end up in the spam folder. The great void. So we have to talk about the unglamorous, highly technical plumbing of e-commerce deliverability. It's like throwing a lavish weekly party. You buy the food, you hire the band. But if you keep sending invitations to people who never show up, eventually the post office thinks you're running some kind of scam, and they just stop delivering your mail altogether.
That's a great way to put it. The golden rule here is that you send your campaigns to the engaged 30 days segment by default, people who have actually opened or clicked something recently.
Wait, really? Because if you just blast your full list every week.
Gmail and Yahoo's algorithms see that nobody is engaging, and they will quietly start routing you straight to the spam folder.
But let's look at the reality of retail.
Yeah.
If I'm a store owner and I just spent tens of thousands of dollars on inventory for a massive Black Friday sale, I want to blast my entire list. I paid good money to acquire those email addresses over the last 3 years. If I only email the engaged segment, I'm leaving hundreds of thousands of people out.
I get the temptation. I really do. But if you blast that unengaged list cold on Black Friday, the major inbox providers will notice the massive, unprecedented spike in unopened emails and spam complaints.
And then what?
They will immediately penalize your domain reputation. Your critical, revenue-driving Black Friday emails won't just miss the dormant customers. They will be routed to the spam folders of your active buyers, too.
Oh, that's brutal. So what's the fix?
If you need to email your full list for a major holiday, you have to run re-engagement campaigns in October to slowly warm up the infrastructure. You cannot just flip a switch in November.
And speaking of that infrastructure, the deliverability requirements changed drastically in early 2024. Gmail and Yahoo put their foot down. If you send over 5,000 emails a day, you must authenticate your domain. You have to set up DKIM, SPF, and DRC records.
Yes, and this trips up a lot of founders.
For anyone not deeply entrenched in IT, let's explain the actual mechanism here. If you just set up Klaviyo and start sending, the emails are technically coming from a default klaviyomail.com server. Inbox providers hate this because it looks generic. Authenticating your domain proves to Gmail that you are who you say you are.
A good way to visualize it is thinking about a physical letter. SPF, or Sender Policy Framework, is basically a guest list you give to the post office saying, these specific mail trucks are allowed to deliver letters on my behalf.
Okay, so the guest list. What about DKIM?
DKIM is a cryptographic, tamper-proof wax seal you put on the envelope, proving the contents weren't altered in transit.
Guest list, wax seal, and DMRs.
DMRC is the bouncer. It tells the receiving server exactly what to do, usually reject it, if a letter shows up claiming to be from you, but lacks the guest list approval and the wax seal.
Got it. So if you don't have that wax seal and that bouncer in place, your effectiveness is just silently capped. And the metrics they judge you on are ruthless. You have to keep your spam complaints under 0.1%.
It's a razor-thin margin.
If you hit Gmail's hard limit of 0.3%, meaning just 3 people out of 1,000 mark you as spam, your inbox placement collapses. And the crazy thing is, you can't even rely on open rates to judge your health anymore.
No, open rates are essentially a vanity metric now, and that's largely because of Apple's Mail Privacy Protection, or MPP.
Let's explain how MPP actually breaks the data. An open rate has always been tracked by a tiny, invisible 1x1 pixel image embedded in the email. When a user opens the email, their email client downloads that tiny image from the server, and the marketing software says, the image loaded, they opened the email. But Apple changed the game.
They absolutely did. Now, if a customer uses the Apple Mail app, Apple's proxy servers automatically download all the images in the background the moment the email is delivered to the device, regardless of whether the user actually looked at it.
So Klaviyo sees the pixel load and triggers an open, vastly inflating your open rates with fake machine-generated data.
Yes, it's entirely artificial.
So since iOS 15 rolled out, the only reliable health metric for engagement is your click-through rate. Did they actually click a link? A healthy CTR is between 1.5 and 4%. That actually proves human interaction.
Exactly. So assuming we have all these fundamentals locked down, the flows are protecting margins, pop-ups are converting, and our domain is fully authenticated with DMRC, how do operators evaluate the major new features pushing the industry forward, specifically SMS and artificial intelligence?
Let's start with the SMS reality check. It's treated like the holy grail, but the economics are brutal. SMS is billed separately from email. It typically costs around 1.5 to 1.6 cents per segment in the U.S.,
which adds up incredibly fast.
The math dictates that it only pays back if your average order value, your AOV, is above $50 and you have at least 2,000 active SMS subscribers. Under $20,000 a month in total revenue, operators are told to stick strictly to email. Why is that $50 AOV a hard line? Why can't a store selling $15 novelty socks use text messages to drive sales?
Well, it comes down to hard variable costs. Sending 10,000 emails costs effectively nothing, right? It's baked into your monthly subscription. But sending 10,000 text messages costs about $150 in hard usage fees.
Right.
If you are selling $15 socks, your actual profit margin after the cost of goods might only be $6 or $7 a pair. You would need an impossibly high conversion rate on those texts just to break even on the raw cost of sending the message.
And that's not even factoring in the legal risks.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In the U.S., SMS is governed by the TCPA, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. The compliance is incredibly strict. You have to capture express written consent. You must respect quiet hours between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. in the recipient's local time zone.
And if you mess up.
The fines are crippling, often between $500 and $1,500 per text message sent in violation. You need high volume and high product margins to justify the legal overhead and the variable costs.
It is a premium high-stakes channel. You have to treat it like one. And finally, we have the AI features integrated into these platforms. What I appreciate about the current landscape is the pragmatism. These AI tools from 2024 to 2026 are not autopilot replacements for marketers.
No, they're productivity multipliers.
Exactly. They act like a hyper-fast intern who doesn't quite understand your brand voice perfectly yet. They get you 80% of the way there, but you have to review the work.
Look at tools like Segments AI. Instead of spending 15 minutes clicking through complex drop-down menus trying to build a logic tree, you just type a plain English request. Show me customers who bought twice in the last 90 days but never opened a post-purchase email.
And it just builds it.
The AI builds the complex segment instantly, saves 10 to 15 minutes right there. You also have subject line assistants and SMS AI assistants that generate variants ranked by predicted open rates based on your historical data.
These tools just eliminate the blank page syndrome and save hours of administrative clicking.
Absolutely.
So, synthesizing everything we've pulled apart today, the blueprint for that 35% revenue mark is entirely about operator discipline. It means resisting the urge to discount in every single email so you don't destroy your margins.
Right.
It means understanding the psychology of your pop-ups to reduce friction. It means meticulously segmenting your lists and setting up that digital wax seal to appease the inbox algorithms. For you listening, whether you're evaluating a brand's marketing or running your own, you now know exactly how the mechanics of a mature e-commerce retention engine are supposed to function.
And analyzing all of this leaves us with a critical realization about the modern digital landscape. Brands spend enormous amounts of energy and capital worrying about forces outside their control.
Like social media algorithms.
Exactly. They panic when an algorithm changes overnight and their organic reach drops to zero. They stress as customer acquisition costs on Meta and Google climb year after year. But when you look at the zero marginal costs, the direct access, and the automated revenue we've discussed today, well, isn't a highly engaged, fully authenticated email list the absolute only true piece of digital real estate a brand actually owns?
It really is. If the sales staff in your digital boutique are finally awake, you better make sure they're talking to people who actually walk through your front door, because nobody else can take those customers away from you.
That's the reality of the business.